Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MS Dynamics World. On this episode, we are talking about how Dynamics ERP customers can evaluate the cost of investing in process automation. My guests are John Parisi of Yooz, makers of AP automation solutions for Dynamics 365, as well as Mark Munson of Ace Micro, a Microsoft partner and also a Yooz partner. In this conversation, we wanted to approach the topic of automation in a way that relates to the needs and considerations of a company that is managing its finances in Dynamics ERP, but still has measurable amounts of manual work from data entry to approvals to even security checks. This episode is sponsored by Yooz, and my guests share their perspective on the AP-related conversations they're having with GP and Business Central customers today related to fraud and error prevention, evaluating the cost of investing in AP automation, and planning how to make it a reality. All right, I am here with John Parisi and Mark Munson. Welcome to both of you. As we get started here in this conversation, maybe we could just do some introductions so our listeners know a bit more about who you are and what you do. John, do you want to go first?
Sure. Perfect. Thank you, Jason. John Parisi here. With Yooz, we do accounts payable. I work on our partner team, but been in the AP spend management space for a little over a decade now. So very excited about this opportunity and speaking with your audience, Jason.
All right, great. And hey, Mark, welcome as well.
Thanks, Jason. Yes, Mark Munson. I'm Vice President of Business Development here at Ace Micro. Ace Micro is a Microsoft partner. Started off 20 some odd years ago in the GP space. Obviously, have moved into the Business Central space with lots of legacy clients still on GP. And AP automation is one of the solutions that we can also bring to bear to our clients.
All right, wonderful. Well, I was looking forward to taking this conversation forward because since we last had Yooz guests on the podcast, we've had some writing about and presenting about security and about partnership as well, which we'll get into a lot more here. But maybe we can start with sort of that security side of things because it's been top of mind. It's a really important topic. So, John, how does AP automation prevent fraud and errors?
Yeah, very good. Good question. If you look at as far as how AP prevents fraud, it's not a matter for companies, will they be hit with fraud? It's just really a question is when. Most companies will eventually be hit with some type of fraud. It could be as simple as a check that has been taken from the company and repurposed fraudulently. What AP process does, it allows companies to detect multiple invoices that are sent into the system. It could be by a mistake where a company sends in a invoice to a particular supplier because they have multiple locations. And without AP automation, a company may end up paying for that invoice multiple times. With an AP automation system, it will detect that invoice based on a number of factors. It could be the invoice number, it could be a purchase order number, it could be a dollar amount. And with that, a AP automation system that is backed by AI is able to detect those instances where multiple invoices are sent into an organization.
All right, yeah. And another, I guess, common concern or question that you'll get is about the cost of automation, right? Is it too expensive? Is it just for larger businesses? How do you take on those questions?
Right. If you look at AP automation in general, it's really set for any size of company, from small companies that may process, say, just 50 to 75 invoices per month, to large enterprise companies that are submitting and paying up to 20, 30,000 invoices per month. So there's cost savings across the board, no matter what size of organization you have. Because if you think about a manual process is when you're receiving an invoice in the mail, and there's a cost associated with that. There's the labor cost, obviously, associated with that. And if you look at what that cost is, when you factor in the labor cost, it could run between $10 to $15 per invoice to process that within inside of your organization. So there's a monetary cost, then there's also a cost in functionality and also as far as transparency to the company itself. So if you look at the amount of time that it takes a company to process an invoice, there's those cost savings. There's also the time that it takes to process an invoice that is sent in via mail. It could range between 15 to almost 30 days to process a mail-in invoice compared to a automated system where you're going to drop the cost almost 70%. It's going to drop to right around $2 to $3 per invoice to come in. And then if you look at the amount of time that it takes, you're dropping it almost 80%. You're going from about 15 to 30 days, and you're going to drop it down to about 3 to 6 days. There's a lot of factors for that. One that I would just like to point out is, when an invoice comes in and it's sitting on someone's desk, that person will be out of the office. So that invoice is sitting on that desk until someone returns back into the office to do the approval. With an automated system, that person could be out of the office, but that AP process, they could assign a delegate. So if they're on vacation or they're out sick, the AP manager can step into the shoes of that AP clerk and keep that invoice flowing throughout their organizations to reduce the number of days that invoice is sitting on someone's desk and get the amount of time from that 15 to 30 days to about 3 to 5 days.
Yeah, those are big changes, big benefits. But Mark, let me pull you in here because these are both concerns that I imagine that you hear from your clients and that you're trying to also sort of answer from them. Do you want to add anything to what John's already mentioned? And yeah.
Absolutely. So let's go back to security real quick. And, I know personally that, personally and professionally, the number of requests I receive via email for fake payments, we're all seeing that. My spam filter probably catches, 3 or 4 a day. One actually gets through. I get text messages telling me, oh, you owe this person or you owe that person. So fake invoices are on the increase. And people can only do so much to kind of put the gates up. And so with AP automation, we're finding that it provides another layer of security, whether it's detection, whether it's vendor validation, whether you have a 3-way match in place to ensure the invoice matches a PO that was issued, matches a receiver. So those are all things we can do because, as John mentioned, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So security is, it's something that's important to us right now and something we need to pay attention to. When it comes to the cost of automation, back in the day, it was really, really expensive, but that's not the case anymore. For us, with our clients that come to us and say, hey, is there anything we can do here? The first question I ask is, how many invoices are you processing a month? And if the answer is 10, okay, well, yeah, maybe this is, overkill. But if you're doing 100 invoices or more a month, these solutions are now very, very cost effective. And to John's point, are going to drive some significant savings throughout your organization.
Yeah, well, let me ask you a follow-up, Mark. What do clients notice day to day after automating AP?
I think the biggest thing is just a lot of efficiencies and cost savings. Again, to John's point, an average invoice costs, if you process it manually, costs $10 to $15 on average. With AP automation, you're taking that cost down to maybe $2 to $3 per invoice. That's a huge savings. Okay, you multiply that out over the number of invoices that you're doing monthly, weekly, monthly, yearly, and that's a lot of money. I think the other thing is visibility, just visibility of these invoices, the ability to pull them up and to look at them. And, maybe you're going through audits and you're having to pull several sample invoices up. Just the ability to get to the information quicker, better, faster. And then lastly is, AP, I always hear this from my AP clerks, chasing invoices. I've got an invoice out there. I put it on somebody's desk and guess what? It's still sitting there. And I got to email them. I got to go back to their office and say, hey, can you look at this? Can you approve this? How much time are people spending just chasing invoices to get the approval, and how much longer and how much more does it cost to process that invoice because we don't have that visibility and we don't have that traceability of where the invoice is in the process and who needs to take the next step.
Yeah, I can just imagine that when some of those steps are automated and when it changes people's work experience, it does then also lead to changes in or reckoning with, I guess, what the optimal processes or what the optimal sort of activities for the team really are and where they can spend more time that they weren't before, things like that. John, anything you would add to what Mark was saying?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add as far as around the security, risk, compliance, what AP automation does, another area where it helps is to detect anomalies in invoices. For example, say you have monthly invoices for your water and it's $100 per month and it's on a reoccurring payment cycle. What a lot of systems and AP automation systems will do, it'll detect when an invoice is out of the norm. So if it's like 3x over the norm of a typical invoice for, say, water usage, it will alert that vendor and let them be aware that typically you should see an invoice of $100 for your usage. Now it's $300 to $500. Why? It could be that there was a water break somewhere and you have leakage. So you need to take that next step. So it does help detect those anomalies as far as on those invoices. And, if an invoice typically from a vendor comes in at, say, $1,000 and you see it come in at $5,000, there may be a reason why. It could be totally legitimate, but it could be a fraudulent invoice that has been sent in as well. So that's another benefit that AP automation brings to the table.
All right. Yeah. Interesting. Well, let's shift to the role of VARs in this space. Last time we did a podcast with the Yooz team, we talked about building strong partnerships and why it's valuable. Why should Microsoft customers work with a reseller or partner instead of going direct? Mark, do you want to take this one first?
The biggest reason is we've got the relationship. Okay. We've been working with these companies for many, many years. We understand the personnel that's in place. We understand the challenges of the business. And that's information that's been developed over, again, many, many years. I mean, some of our clients that have been with Ace Micro for 20 plus years. And so, not that third-party ISVs couldn't gather that information, but nowhere near the level of depth that a partner is going to bring to bear just because that relationship has been in place for so long. So, we understand their business. We understand the challenges. We have the relationships with the people. And we can also, and I think just as importantly, we can set the expectations, the appropriate expectations with the client of what the solution is going to do, what it's not going to do, what's the delivery going to look like, what's their level of participation that's required for this to be successful. So, a partner brings a lot of those things to bear in these types of situations.
Yeah. John, does any of that ring true to you?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, the reason why we love working with partners such as Mark is just the reach that they have that we as a software vendor just would never be able to do. If you look at the mid-sized market space, there's hundreds of thousands of companies. We could never have that large enough presence inside the marketplace to reach those customers. But by working with a reseller such as Mark and Ace Micro, they have that reach into their customer base that we would never have. And they have that, like Mark was saying, that knowledge on that particular customer that we would never be able to gain. So we could leverage that expertise that Mark has with that client. Mark could leverage our expertise on the product. And when you join the two forces together, it makes a great fit for the client.
Yeah. And Jason, I want to add one more thing there is it truly is a partnership. And that's, I think, the operative word here. Ace takes a lot of pride in working with best of breed solutions providers, Yooz being that in the AP automation space. And we truly try to develop a partnership. And so, even though we take a lot of pride in doing pre-sales discovery and understanding the needs, and making sure that we've qualified the opportunity as much as we possibly can, and we take a lot of pride in that. Before we bring our partner in, we still like to bring our partner in early and often because they know the product, they know the solution. And so bringing your ISV partner in to an opportunity early, allowing them to go through their process and discovery and demos and all those types of things, I think is extremely important. But that all goes back to building a strong partnership between, the VAR and the third-party ISV.
Yeah, of course. Well, Mark, I want to stay with you for this next question. You mentioned as we were getting started that you were focused on GP much more in the past, and you still have a GP customer base that is sort of still working with you and still working with GP, which is an older system. So when companies are on legacy ERPs like that, how difficult is integration with an AP automation platform?
It really is, again, over time that has improved to a point where it's almost seamless. So whether you're in the cloud, whether you're on-prem, whether you have some sort of hybrid deployment, a mixed deployment of cloud and on-prem, integration with these systems is pretty straightforward. And a lot of it is out of the box. So that makes our lives so much easier. And I look at it as time to value. So when a client makes these decisions, as we all know, they take months to make it, but they want it implemented yesterday. So the quicker you can get things out once they make that decision, the better. And because of these connectors already exist to allow for that seamless integration, the time to value is increased so much, and the clients can see the benefit of the spend much, much sooner.
John, yeah, anything you want to add there? I mean, I know having tie-ins to multiple ERPs is obviously valuable, but that list can get quite big, right? I mean, legacy ERPs are probably something your team also has to think about.
It is. I mean, if you look at the legacy ERPs, difference between those and the ERPs that are on the marketplace today is how do you connect into those legacy systems? They may not have an open platform for us to connect into, but if you look at the ERPs within the last 20 years, almost all of them have some way for us as a software vendor to get into their data so we can connect our solution into theirs. So we could sync the invoice information, so we could sync the payments. We could pull the DL codes from from GP into our system. So when their AP clerk is doing some type of approval, they could approve it and assign that invoice to the correct GL account. So yeah, within the last 10, 12 years, the integrations between a system such as Yooz with our AP automation and either legacy or any of the new systems that are out in the marketplace, the connection is relatively painless. A lot of them, we have integrations pre-built. Yes, we may have to do some custom integrations for a particular client. They have a particular need. But as long as that accounting system, the ERP system, has those hooks, if they have those hooks for us to link our system into theirs, it should be wonderful for that client.
Yeah, John, let me stick with you for this next question. We can get both perspectives, but when a finance leader is worried about change management or team resistance of implementing AP automation, what's your typical response to that kind of concern?
When we're talking to companies that are looking to automate, there's always some people in the organization that may have a little concern as far as how much are you going to disrupt our current state of business? Is this going to be a 3-month project? Is it a 6-month project? Will it be even longer than that? So we do see some people pushing back. But what I've seen within the last 10 years or so, it's really the makeup of a lot of companies. The AP clerks, you're getting a new set of accountants inside of organizations, and they're very comfortable using technology. So just imagine if a new CPA or a new accountant were to go in an organization and you were to tell them, oh, the way we do our accounts payable or the way we record our transactions is still in a ledger. They would look at you like, for one, that company probably is not on the forefront of technology. So it's an easy way for companies to even recruit, or a hard way if they're doing manual systems and doing them in the old legacy way to be able to recruit the talent that they need. One area where I do see, especially at the senior level, is a lot of CFOs, they will say that they end up losing control. They don't like to automate, say, the payment side of the house. And when they say that, that means they don't want to lose control. And the whole idea is that they want to know exactly when the money is going out of their organization. What they have to realize is they never lose that control. It's just a different way of managing that control. In a manual system, they don't have to write a check, and that's their control. In an automated system, instead of writing out the check itself, they could just click a box. If they don't want to pay a particular invoice that month, they don't have to click it. It won't flow through the entire system. And when they're ready to make a payment, they could do it automatically inside of the software itself.
Yeah, I can add to that if you'd like me to. But, for us, our approach is getting the end users involved in the process very, very early. Okay, so having them involved in our discovery sessions, having them involved in the solutions presentations. And, if we're doing our job right, we're listening to them, we're hearing them, and we're providing them the information they need so they can specifically see how this is going to make their lives easier. Okay. And if you're able to do that, then change management, which is typically always an issue, becomes less of an issue because they can sit there and they can say, this is going to make my life easier. It's going to make me more productive. It's going to make me more efficient. We say that from a selling standpoint, we sell from the top down. Decisions are made from the top down, but successful deployments are really bottom up. And so unless you have those people involved in the evaluation and presentation and selection process, you have to have them involved in that process for them to get the buy-in and for them to be committed to the rollout of the solution. And then change management becomes, much less of an issue.
Well, let me get a few final thoughts from each of you. And Mark, maybe I'll stay with you on this one. So what's your elevator pitch to a CFO or a controller who's maybe still on the fence why this is the time to automate?
Yeah, I think a good exercise for any CFO or controller would be to, and I don't think a lot of them even really understand what their cost per invoice is to process. So I think my recommendation would be to go back and calculate that And it's a pretty easy calculation. You add up the salaries in AP, you add up the benefits, you add up the computers, the supplies, the stamps, the envelopes, whatever it may be. Add all that up and then divide it by the number of invoices per month, and you'll see what your average cost per invoice is. And if that average cost is $10 or more, we can save you money. So that would be the advice that I would give any CFO or controller is go out and if you've never done it, do it. If you haven't done it in a while, do it again. And that will give you a real clear indication as to whether this is going to be a benefit to you or not.
Yeah, John, let me give you the final word here.
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with Mark. As far as when you speak into organizations, especially if they're on the manual side, they're accustomed to do it manual. A lot of CFOs may be reluctant to automate their system because they see that invoices and payments are being made. What they don't realize is the amount of hours that are being really wasted by their staff to track payments, to track invoices. All the CFO is seeing at the end of the month is that, these invoices are being made and have been executed. What they don't know is the lost opportunity because of their AP side of the house. They could be doing more productive things. I always say no one went to college. These CPAs and accountants never went to college to open up a piece of mail and push that piece of paper from one desk to another. They could use that time at a higher level for their organization more strategically than just opening mail and processing a piece of paper to get it through an organization.
That's a great point, and it really speaks to sort of how I think comfortable people can become with inefficient processes, right? When there's a better way, and it's always great to reevaluate that.
No doubt.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both so much for being here. It's always great to catch up on kind of the latest thinking in the space. John, Mark, really great to talk to you both.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jason.
This has been another episode of the MSTW podcast. My thanks once again to John and to Mark for joining me. And this message from Yooz. If today's conversation got you thinking about efficiency, visibility, or fraud prevention, visit getyooz.com. That's GETYOOZ.com to explore demos, ROI tools, and customer stories that show what automation makes possible. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, jason@msdynamicsworld.com, or you can follow us on LinkedIn for all of our updates. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.